What's up, everybody? And today we're checking out why CIA says China is preparing massive invasion. This is by Cappiami, the legendary Chris over at Cappiami. This is his new channel. We've gone over this before. If you haven't already, he's got a new channel. He was in Task and Purpose. He's moved on to his own channel, Cappiami, which we're all very excited about. We've watched one of his videos before on this channel, and it was phenomenal. So we're here to watch another one again. Sit back. It's like 26 minutes long. I will leave a link down below to the original video. Please go over to Cappiami. Give him a like. Give him a subscribe. It's fantastic content. It's some of the best news, military news on YouTube. In fact, I think it is the best military news channel on YouTube. So please go over to Cappiami. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, all that good stuff. Before we get started, check out Chug. 10% off, link down below for the best drinking vessel in the world. These things are amazing. Handmade. They're made by hand. By hand. By a small business here in the UK. You cannot get a better drinking vessel anywhere in the world. Free customization, free bag, 10% off. Keeps your beverage cold for a very long time. You need to get one. Also, check out Morale, my new business. It is a drink. It's amazing. If you love the outdoors, if you want to get the next generation of kids outside, if you want to see a business that was successful on Kickstarter, we were aiming to raise 15 grand. We raised 18. Incredible. Check out Morale, link down below. It's not out yet, but it'll be out soon. And if you go over there, follow all the socials, be prepared for when it comes out. Other than that, let's shut up. Let's pull this up and let's see what he's going to say. Why do I feel like the camera's not in the right place? Do I need to come down a bit? He's come down. There we go. Okay, subbies. Where's me subbies? Get me subbies on. All right, Chris, what's going on with China?
Goodness gracious me, U.S. intelligence satellites picked up something wild when they were scanning about 30 miles southwest of Beijing. They noticed signs that the Chinese Communist Party has been quietly constructing the largest military command center in all of human history. Located in the western hills of Beijing, this colossal facility spans over 4 kilometers in length. That's 10 Pentagons worth of military infrastructure.
4 kilometers?
To put this whole thing into perspective, it'll cover over 1,000 football fields.
Oh my God, imagine if you're on that base and you get in trouble and they're like, you got to go run 5 camp circuits. For those of you who don't know, in the Royal Marines, you do what's called a camp circuit where you run around the whole base. And it can turn out nasty if you've got to do, you know, double digits of them, which has happened before. Imagine doing it on this base, 4 kilometers long, and you've got like, I don't know, 10 camp circuits, 40 kilometers. Have fun with that.
Is this the world's single biggest prepper project, or is it evidence of a massive looming war on the horizon? Former head of China analysis for the CIA, Dennis Wilder, believes it's the latter. He said, if confirmed, this new advanced underground command bunker for the military leadership signals Beijing's intent to build not only a world-class conventional force, but also an advanced nuclear war-fighting capability.
Nuclear? So are we going to be talking about the nuclear capabilities of this base? With it being that big, it wouldn't surprise me.
But of course, that's what the CIA wants us to think. Those psyoping sons of I'm going to need a little more evidence than that if you want to convince me that China's planning an invasion. Well,
True.
Take a look at this gigantic 820-meter-long ferry. That's 3 times the size of the Titanic. Looks innocent enough, except U.S. intelligence assessed they're designed for an invasion because China was observed training with these ships to prepare to land thousands of tanks and troops on shore. The way it works is kind of fascinating. The ships link together, forming this single long bridge that goes from the ship that's positioned all the way deep out in the water right onto the shore, interconnecting like a bunch of modular Legos.
I don't believe that is in any way a great idea in 2025. All it takes is one successful hit on target. The moment you start seeing that moving up to somewhere and they're going to invade, and you get out some F-35s or something, and you hit it once on target, boom, it's done. The link's broke. I don't think that's a very useful bit of kit. If I'm honest. I mean, it's great in theory. Execution's always different, though, isn't it?
According to Hy Sutton, who's just a legend of a naval expert, he's the guy that originally spotted these. Its bridge is 120 meters long, so it can extend out past the beach which would skip the annoying sandy part of an amphibious landing and put you right on a coastal Taiwanese road. Growing up, I used to take the ferry from Port Jeff on Long Island to Connecticut, and even getting civilian cars on board of a ship is a giant circus.
Yeah.
But what I've never seen is a civilian ferry that interlinks like a maritime transformer invasion platform. It's a Chinese naval invasion barge human centipede. I think that's what you call docking. Now look it up on the Urban Dictionary. Wait, do not show that result for the love of God. Satellite images show China is preparing more than 5 of these giant ferries. It solves 2 giant problems for China. First, they didn't...
Okay, so obviously these bridges would be guarded like it's shown in this image here, and they've got the equipment to guard it. Again, it just takes one successful hit, doesn't it? It takes one successful hit. I know they're obviously prepping to invade Taiwan. They have been for like 3 decades now. I just don't think that's a plausible bit of kit. I really don't.
Have the capacity to move thousands of troops ashore with their landing craft until now. And second, if you look at the geography of Taiwan, there's only about a dozen beaches suitable for an amphibious assault, and only 2 of those are nude beaches. These platforms extend out, and they allow China to skip rocky, rough beach and land in new, unpredictable places. To get an expert opinion on all this, I spoke with former CIA officer Mick Mulroy.
Okay.
Partner countries, and we have a lot of them, some treaty countries like Japan and South Korea, but also Indonesia and other countries out there that are very concerned, as you mentioned, Chris, about Chinese activities. They claim territorial waters that's not theirs. They build islands and then claim it's China. It's been described to me by many of our country partners out there. They simply come and take everything, don't worry about any kind of sustainable fishing methods, and it's not even their waters, right? So it's a huge problem economically and I think militarily.
The problem is, what one person sees as evidence of an impending invasion, another person might see as a defensive preparation, which is why it's so important to have that good intelligence to figure out the intention of your adversaries. I'd like to introduce...
Yeah, so what could their intention be? We know they've always been kicking up a fuss with Taiwan, but still, I don't know. I don't think China's got the guts to do anything. I mean, if it was going to do anything, now would be the best time to do it because Ukraine, Russia, right? So a lot of money's been put into that from Europe. You've got Israel, Gaza. So a lot of the human rights stuff and activists and all that stuff have got themselves occupied. And now you've got India and Pakistan kind of just simmering in the news line. You kind of have this amalgamation of distraction, which gives China a good opportunity to do something. But I still think that if China did something like that, it would be devastating. I think it would be all over the news.
To my dad, Papa Cappy, and my brother, Peter Cappy, we live far apart from each other, so the way we like to stay in touch is by playing video games together, which is why I thought it would be perfect for today's sponsor, World of Warships.
I'm going to just get past the sponsor real quick. I am not allowed to talk about and watch sponsors on other channels, unfortunately.
Back to the video. Michael Dam, a retired U.S. Navy intelligence officer, wrote a paper published on the Naval War College about the barges, and he said he no longer doubts China's preparing for war by 2027, saying, quote, "I will tell you my mind has really changed over just the last 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
Seeing the scale of the infrastructure and capability improvements that the Chinese have made." And it's not just military analysts and the CIA noticing this ramp up. I've personally seen a surge in listings on Temu for waifu body pillows, which are not explicitly mentioned in Chinese war doctrine, but it's an open source indication, I think, that thousands of Chinese soldiers may be preparing to leave home for long, lonely nights. In this paper,
what scares me more about all this stuff, right, is we're hearing about how China have these kill switches in solar farms and all this other stuff. And the fact that a lot of our technology in the West is manufactured by companies in China definitely gives me a little bit of the whole Israel pager situation where, I don't know if you know, there was this thing where these pagers were going and basically exploding, harming people that were issued from Israel. And whether that's true or not, I don't really know the intricacies, but the idea is that if you get given something by another country, they could have a kill switch or something even more dangerous that could hinder or hurt people, right? And so if they kind of activated all these things at the same time that might not be real, but if they were real and they activated them all at the same time and then invaded, it's almost as if there'd be loads of stuff going on at the same time and there'd be lots of plates being spun. And they might get away with invading a country and using stuff like this barge while everyone else in the West is distracted. And so, you know, it gives me this kind of paranoia that a country has been relied on for so long that they could definitely use that to their advantage. Does that make sense?
Am says the barge is built to accommodate small tactical vehicles and trucks up to 50-ton tanks even. A single heavy combined arms battalion of 150 vehicles would likely need a minimum of 30 minutes to offload from one of these roll-on, roll-off ships using the temporary pier. I know no one in my unit in Iraq left home without this. That, or it's something I could never get approved to expense until now that I'm running my own company. So basically, these giant engaging barges are sitting ducks for 30 minutes while they offload vehicles. Just big old targets waiting to get hit in the teeth with a HIMARS missile. But China plans to land uncontested after a massive bombardment. Let me print out his paper so I can better show you exactly what I mean. Oh, wait, why isn't
He's still having issues with his HP printer. So am I! So am I! That printer over there is dog shit. I literally got it a couple weeks ago. It's HP as well. And it's giving me some sort of error about the printer head not working or some crap. I swear to God, everything else in the world has advanced in technology, but printers are still dog shit. They are.
this printer work? We should go to war for ink resources so it doesn't cost $60 every time I print out a dang paper.
The primary job, of course, for the CIA is to collect information, intelligence, right, that informs the products that they produce for policymakers to then make decisions. We need to make decisions based on facts of what the adversary intends to do. For example, does China actually intend to invade Taiwan? Does China look at it, the problem, and say that's going to be such a costly endeavor that we're just going to maybe isolate Taiwan, put a naval blockade on it? We need to know how they're thinking and what they're thinking, because that's going to be how we direct our assets.
But how does China plan to land uncontested?
Oh my God.
They just released footage of what they say is the first ever drone mothership.
Oh my God.
Can release 100 kamikaze drones, a swarm of drones right out of its tummy, like a big old
Wow.
mothership.
China has unveiled a new weapon. Chinese media is calling it a drone mothership.
That's absolutely terrifying. After the amount of damage we've seen that happened with drones over in Ukraine, Russia, this is terrifying.
And according to China, it can launch anti-air missiles, it can launch anti-ship missiles. And
Wow.
It's just this big old payload that they'll use to overwhelm Taiwan's
Why does she look like AI?
defensive network. However, according to Western analysts, it's a big old sitting duck in the sky that is just a big juicy target for incoming F-35 air-to-air missiles. But it doesn't stop.
Yeah, but if it gets there in time before it releases this swarm of drones, do you know what I mean?
There, once on the ground, China revealed their next step of the plan, which is to release drones that look like birds.
Pigeons are not real. Now confirmed. Confirmed pigeons are not real.
Confirmed birds are not real. New terrifying nightmare unlocked. Then I became a little bit less scared when I saw how they plan to deploy them using segways, which is a pretty gay way to use them, and not in a good way where two guys are smooth.
Oh my days. Oh, Chris, what you doing to me, mate? What you doing to me?
And that all comes back to this construction
Oh my
project.
days.
At the center of coordinating these plans is this gigantic Chinese military headquarters sitting at the head of all of this. So we're going to find out what it is about this massive Chinese
my
defense
days.
project that has American spooks so spooked. The scale of this investment is just staggering, and it's part of the reason why I got so interested in this story in the first place. Because construction experts in the United Kingdom have speculated the construction costs at between 150
Wow.
and $200 billion.
Holy
That's
crap.
absolutely freaking wild.
That's
boys. It
insane.
makes me want to say ooh woo in the most unironic way. That far exceeds the entire annual military budget of every nation except for the United States and China itself. It's more than 3 times what the US spent on the entire Manhattan Project, adjusted for inflation. The
Wow.
actual cost for the American Pentagon construction project had a budget equivalent to about $1 billion in today's money.
But what does that even mean when you say this is, quote, the Chinese Pentagon? And why does it sound kind of racist when I say that out loud? It's a shortcut way of saying it'll be the brain of China's military operations. Because when the
Yeah, this is going to become their major home base, isn't it? Look at the size of this base. They could have everything there, couldn't they, to be honest with you? This could legit be their military headquarters.
American Pentagon was first built during World War II in 1941, it was created with the purpose of centralizing military leadership. It was the nerve center of decision-making, the scale of which had never been seen before in military history. The Pentagon became the world's largest office building at the time, with some 20,000 employees there. Since then, in every major American war, it's where various combatant commands from like the Army, Air Force, and Navy would meet to all coordinate. You can't combine arms without somewhere to combine them. This is something that today seems obvious to us. Seems like that's just a given. Duh, there should be a war room where everybody collaborates. But it only seems obvious because of the success of the Pentagon.
I never realized how big the Pentagon actually is.
Collaborates, but it only...
When you see pictures of it kind of side on, you don't realize how big it actually... That's massive, isn't it? It is legitimately massive. Also, size of them car parks. Come on, America. Let's have some public transport. We don't need this many cars everywhere. I mean, it does. It does. I've lived in America for nearly 10 years. I understand why everyone has cars and no public transport. But still, it's a lot of cars.
Seems obvious because of the success of the Pentagon. In fact, other countries actually work very hard to do the opposite, to make sure that their militaries are separated and that each branch is isolated. And we'll get into the reason why that is more later. What makes all this particularly interesting to me, though, is the timing of it all. Full-scale construction of this project began in mid-2024,
wow,
even as China's property sector was collapsing. I mean, we've all heard the stories of ghost cities and half-built skyscrapers abandoned across China when a nation diverts massive resources to work 24/7 around the clock on this underground massive military facility at the same exact time as that's happening. On face value, it can be puzzling. At the same time, over the past 3 years, the Chinese military has stepped up military drills in the Taiwan Strait.
Oh my God.
In what appears to be a practice run to establish a full blockade. Meanwhile, China continues to officially deny that the military project even exists. When the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. was asked about it, they said, "We are not aware of the details, but China's committed to the path of peaceful development and a defense policy that is defensive in nature." Local Chinese media...
I mean, I get it. They're going to say defensive in nature, but at the same time, like, if they're practicing all these things, wasn't there even like footage of them practicing on a dummy of a ship that looked identical to an American one? Like, I get it. That might be like, this is just for defense, but it's also, it's close to home in a way.
It hasn't reported on it, and the government websites that would normally have information on such a large-scale project turn up nothing. Where there's no smoke, sometimes there's fire.
The general who's skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth.
But to find out answers, reporters from the Financial Times tried to access the site on the ground. There were warnings everywhere against using drones or taking photographs, posted everywhere. Popular hiking trails nearby were shut down. Satellite imagery examined by US intelligence shows more than 100 cranes operating simultaneously. Massive...
That's a big bit of production going on there, isn't it? Like, just look at the scale of that. You can see vehicles down there. Look at the size of that. Wow.
Excavation pits and extensive structural reinforcements hammered into the earth.
Some of this just doesn't, like, it doesn't happen overnight. They've been planning something like this for probably decades.
Whenever you hear someone say something like intelligence agencies or security officials like that, that's usually another way of saying the CIA. A construction supervisor who was on his way out of the site refused to comment on the project to the Financial Times reporters. Those reporters, we just say they have giant balls. I'd be terrified that the MSS, China's state security, would snatch me up for asking questions like that around there. If you yell loud enough, there's no secret military base here, it might make people think there's a secret military base there. The thing is, though, you can't really hide something this big from the eyes in the sky forever.
Yeah.
US satellite imagery gives us some actual answers. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win.
Several
They're gonna have to admit that it's there at some point. Like, they can't just deny. It looks so big. It's ridiculous.
Different U.S. officials said the CIA has been closely monitoring the site since they first broke ground. In that initial step, they cleared the area of any residential buildings, flattening them in preparation for the major construction project.
Wow.
Even though their internet is heavily censored over there by the Chinese Communist Party, we can still see a trace of evidence of this in an online forum, where a resident asks why these villages are being demolished. Don't ask too many questions, unless you want to get gone. The U.S. analysts observed the grid layout, and it appeared that these blue concrete patches that you see there suggest specialized, heavy-duty construction. Then they noticed what looks like a sprawling complex, and by late 2024, satellites showed most major surface buildings were already up.
Jeez, it's going up quick as well. Like, this isn't something that's taking their time. Like, this is quick. Very quick, considering that was the end of 2024.
January 2025 show a big central complex with thick concrete walls. Based on the research our team has done here, we believe that the construction is being done by the China State Construction Engineering Corporation, working alongside the Military Engineering Corps. This project uses expertise developed through China's massive civilian infrastructure projects, particularly its extensive metro systems and their high-speed rail tunnels. Given its size, conservative estimates state that there's room for over 50,000 personnel at this headquarters.
50,000?
On the surface is just the tippy tip of the iceberg. The real action is deep under the facility, where China is working on a capability that U.S. intelligence agencies believe points to preparations for World War III.
Oh, for God's sake.
Nuclear war happens, be sure to go to cappyarmy.com for some of our new merch.
I'm probably going to get some of their merch, actually. I love his videos.
According to the 2024 U.S. Department of Defense report, the CCP began expanding its underground facilities in 2011. And this Chinese Pentagon is a prime example of it. They're digging deeper and deeper. The air systems to keep personnel breathing may represent perhaps the most critical and vulnerable component of any underground facility. To address these vulnerabilities, the facility needs to employ sophisticated filtration systems with blast valves protecting intake points. These automatic valves can seal instantly upon detecting pressure waves, preventing blast effects or contaminants from entering the ventilation system.
Wow.
I asked my producer Armando if he could actually find where these air vents might be located.
So what I did was I literally went in to do a comparative study on each, like how these facilities are built and how they work. And here's like the location, everything that's known about them. If you go to the maps and you see like a road that...
So they're saying that these air intakes are located off the base, and that means that the underground facilities are so big that it's expanding what that base would be as a footprint. That's interesting. That's massive.
It just suddenly ends. That's how I actually located the entrances. I located the most likely points of entry and shaft placement. I calculated basically like what kind of filters they would have and how
this guy's doing the work, isn't he? What's this guy called again?
Often they need to circulate the air. Okay, so I'm just gonna say it like in layman's terms. So basically what we did was, this has been previously modeled. There are names for the way the fallout is going to go. So we basically took these simulations, determined where the topography was going to enable the wind to stay clear of those shafts, and determined where the most likely entry points were going to be.
But China's obsession with going underground actually didn't start with Beijing Military City, this Chinese Pentagon. It began with a single directive from Chairman Mao Zedong himself when he told his people to, quote, dig tunnels deep. It was the late 1960s, and at the time, relations with the Soviet Union and China had deteriorated from friendly communist brotherhood to a pissing match with nuclear powers. Not to mention, American boots were on the ground right next door in Vietnam, and that was escalating. This made Mao particularly worried, as he felt China was surrounded by threats. He became convinced they needed to prepare for the worst. So what followed was perhaps...
Why can't people just chill out? Why do we have to be fighting all the time? Why can't we just chill and vibe and just have a good time together? Why is it a constant friggin' pissing match trying to see who's got the biggest nuts? Let's just relax. We're happy with the land we've got.
It's one of the most ambitious civilian tunneling projects in all of Asia's history.
Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak.
Beneath the streets of Beijing, hundreds of thousands of ordinary Chinese citizens, armed with nothing more sophisticated than shovels, picks, and wheelbarrows, they built an underground city with miles of hand-dug tunnels over 10 meters deep. The network, nicknamed the Underground City, had a capacity ranging from 300,000 people to 6 million people.
What?
It had provisions of food, water, ventilation. In the event of a nuclear attack, the
How am I only just hearing about this? That's insane.
plan was to be able to move every single Beijing resident safely underground. Today, the system lays mostly defunct. Some parts of it were refurbished as like cheap hotels. Meanwhile, others were transformed into shopping centers or theaters. Notably, the system was said to reach out to military outposts and connect various command centers.
That's
The precedent
crazy.
had been set though. When they felt threatened, China would go underground. The Chinese Communist Party has a major strategic problem that they need to solve. The US military has a whole fleet of strategic stealth bombers. No one else on Earth has this capability to fly undetected 50,000 feet and drop a big bunker buster on your
Yeah, them things are absolutely lethal, aren't they? you ain't escaping one of them. It's coming.
face. So the Chinese Communist Party is trying to develop a solution to that problem. They've been trying to do this since the first Gulf War, which spooked Chinese leadership.
Go
Their
deeper.
Top military generals were focused on how US precision bombs picked apart Iraqi command centers and hardened targets like they were nothing. So the PLA got to work on an array of hardened aircraft shelters, HAS for short, and satellite imagery has confirmed that over 400 of these type of shelters are created all over China. But the
What are they
digging
then?
down didn't stop there. They
What is it, just like dig deeper? There's only so deep you can go. You know what I mean? There's only so far you can go in.
actually doubled down on their quote-unquote underground Great Wall. The underground Great Wall is a vast network of almost 3,000 miles long.
Holy shit.
It was designed to conceal China's growing arsenal of nuclear ICBMs. Beijing created a credible second strike, this capability that ensured their ability to retaliate even after absorbing a first strike. And they kept going at it. By the early 2000s, China's underground ambitions extended beneath the waves and into legitimate Bond villain territory. They had massive underground submarine structures. But China's most critical underground facility until now has been the Xishan, which is approximately 15 miles from central Beijing.
Why did I not know about China's love for digging? I never knew about this. This is completely new to me.
This is China's primary joint operation command center, built during the height of the Cold War at a depth of approximately 100 meters. The facility has served as the People's Liberation Army's primary hardened command post for decades. Here in the underground chambers, carved beneath the scenic hills, sits the brain of China's military. But there's a problem: insufficient capacity. The PLA of 2025 simply can't fit its expanded command apparatus and new capabilities into a bunker that was designed for a much simpler, smaller military of the 1970s, and that's the least of its problems. Beyond the vulnerability, the aging facility faces another challenge, a critical flaw, if you will. It wasn't designed to be a secure combat command center by modern standards.
The truth is, though, any of these tunnels can be refurbished, I'm sure. And they probably are I bet a lot of them have been refurbished so they can still be used. The thing is, once the infrastructure's there, it can just be like modified, can't it? That's pretty terrifying that they've got all these tunnels.
Because while China's military might technically be smaller, its capabilities are greater.
Yeah.
The reason why China's building Beijing Military City is because of a critical date that looms large in Chinese military planning, 2027, the year that they're ordered to be fully modernized and ready to invade Taiwan.
And this
Wow.
is part of the reason why I think China is building their own version of the Pentagon today, as a way to unify their commands. Remember, it was only in 2016 that their military even split theater command based on region. It was only recently that their military began combined arms doctrine, where each branch fights in coordination with the other. This is because in the past, the separate branches in China were purposefully kept weak to mitigate the threat of one of them joining forces with the other and overthrowing the government. For these reasons, I think this is at least a major indication of a greater level of cooperation between Chinese military branches than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, it seems like they're really getting organized. They're really getting things in check and getting things very effective. So that, yeah, they can have this central base and they can... This idea of 2027 is I want to know more about this as well. Is this a confirmed thing that they said they want to be fighting fit by 2027? Like, is that confirmed? Because that's interesting in itself, isn't it?
Modern precision-guided bunker-busting munitions have rendered that old facility increasingly vulnerable. So if their current best is outdated and vulnerable, they need something new. They need new digs. When we interpreted our team, when we looked at the images from the deep pits of the central grid of the complex, we used shadow geometry that suggested that the deepest parts are just 130 feet deep, which I found odd. In fact, this congressional report mentions how hardened facilities are safe even from nukes if buried deep enough. The People's Liberation Army Engineering University, Beijing, conducted a study on the effects of nuclear bunker-busting weapons, which revealed vulnerabilities down to 6,500 feet, which placed into perfect context what one of our experts had to say about this.
We spoke to Yago Rodriguez, who has a PhD in strategic studies. He's one of Europe's most compelling voices in military analysis, who broke it all down for me Barney style.
Wow.
So from my point of view, they will go as deep as being able to survive a nuclear explosion on the surface of the compound. I think they like a lot the trickery, the diversion tactics, so I think that they will let you see some things, and those will be false, so the true extension of their net of tunnels and the deepness of them will be even bigger for sure.
Again, you can only go so deep, though. I know there's innuendos there. We can have some fun with that. But the truth is, like, once you get down to a certain, like they said about the infrastructure that you would need the further down you go is vastly bigger, right? Like, is that even a sentence? Like the air intakes and all that stuff, there's always going to be a vulnerability no matter how deep you go. And so, yeah, they're probably showing, like, the stuff you can see from satellites is surface level. It's surface. I guarantee they're doing more, right? But still, and at the same time, how effective is like something to be, you know, to avoid with nukes? Because I don't think like anything in the UK or the Pentagon or anything like that would be good enough to survive a nuke in the US with the Pentagon or anything. I think that well, maybe there is infrastructure for that, but it's a nuke. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. If you bomb something with a nuke, yes, it might not go down deep enough to hit one of them deepest bunkers. But the blast and exposure and radiation after it is probably going to cover most of the vents in the nearest areas. And so the filtration system and the nuclear fallout and the power that would be needed, like, it just seems unavoidable. Maybe it's not.
And here's the real head scratcher. These kind of sites are usually built in very hard rock, like the US did and the Russians did with their big, massive underground facilities. However, this site is built on limestone, dolomite, and carbonate rock, all considered to be much softer and less suitable for deep tunneling and hard construction. Why do it there then? It's likely a calculated gamble. Soft rock is way easier and faster to excavate. Think digging through drywall versus solid granite. And crucially, some engineers believe softer rock might actually absorb and dampen the shock waves from a nearby explosion better than hard rock, which tends to transmit shock very efficiently. It's like the difference between hitting a brick wall and a steel plate. The brick gives, right? While the steel rings your bell. It's a fierce debate in the bunker building world. Shock absorption versus inherent strength. China's known for cutting corners in their production, but when it comes to their high priority new military headquarters, they would spare no expense. They're likely using ultra high performance concrete, which isn't your sidewalk mix. It's concrete on steroids, 10 times stronger than the regular stuff.
Ooh.
But how do you get thousands of people in and out of the facility without creating a giant bomb here sign on the surface?
Yeah.
To give you the inside scoop, our
That's the thing. There is a lot of stuff on the outside that would give away a lot of this, surely.
producer Armando reached out to Ron Hubbard, who runs Atlas Survival Shelters. This guy creates bomb shelters with a team of advisors who have actually worked on the equivalent U.S. underground bunker sites.
You
Jeez.
don't access them from the top, you access them from underground from the side. So you basically are going to enter it from some mountain hundreds of miles away. You're going to get on a high-speed train. They're going to have a large boring machine. They may start off at 100 feet underground, and the tunnel may just angle down to it ends up at 6,000 feet.
My
They're using
God.
massive tunnel boring machines, like the one that dug out the Channel Tunnel, potentially starting the tunnel entrance miles and miles away and then gently sloping down.
They're going to enter it through train. They're not going to come down from the top. It's not like there's an elevator that's going to go down. They're going to enter from the side.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, that's just common sense. But you will.
It is, but if that slope is slow enough, like how far away can they go? And then again, there's got to be infrastructure. If the entrance is hundreds of miles away on the side of a mountain, there has to be things every so often for air intake and all this other stuff. It can't literally just be a hole in the ground and then that's it. There's got to be more infrastructure.
Will not ever be able to go there and find a super high-speed elevator. I would not think they would, because that's basically leaving an exposed shaft right to the surface.
Right.
But who gets the benefit from all these high-tech hardenings? It's designed to ensure the continuity of government, what's called COG, or maybe more accurately, continuity of the Communist Party, and continuity of command for the People's Liberation Army. This structure actually closely mirrors past American efforts at the concept of continuity of government. If you look at sites like Raven Rock and Mount Weather, these were designed to preserve constitutional authority during catastrophic events. Therefore, the guest list is exclusive, including the core leadership, Xi Jinping, of course, at the top Central Military Commission brass. Beijing Military City isn't just an isolated fortress, but a major hardened node in a vast classified underground network designed for leadership mobility and redundant command. To me, it shows an interesting contrast in strategy compared to the United States approach. These reports come at the same time as the U.S. military building a massive next-generation air defense Golden Dome, as it's called. These both appear to be preparations for a great power military conflict, but with very different approaches.
It just seems, again, I've been on this ramp before, it seems like everyone's ramping their military stuff up, and it's pointing in a bad direction, isn't it? It is really kind of going in a direction that I'm worried about.
The construction of Beijing Military City isn't just a military infrastructure project, it's a strategic signal to the world, particularly the United States, by investing enormous resources in this facility. China's making a clear statement that it's preparing for the possibility of high-intensity conflict that could escalate to nuclear threshold. A directive to be ready by 2027 invasion barges and a giant command center.
That's 2 years away. It's less than 2 years away now. It's a year and a half away. 2027.
And this huge underground network that'll all be finished and coalesce by 2027. All of this is evidence that even if China doesn't pull the trigger, they're definitely building the gun. If you want to support this completely independent venture, you can go to cappyarmy.com for our Patreon pepper box and merch links. There's exclusive, uncensored content available for you. Thank you guys. It means everyththing to us.
Definitely go check them out. I'm going to leave a link in the description. As always, they're phenomenal. They really are. Cappy Army, I'm so glad he's gone to do his own thing because his videos are legitimately unbelievable. And he's funny as well. So go check out Cappy Army, link down below. I don't know, guys. Like, it's terrifying, isn't it, to think that we might be heading in a direction where, yeah, I'm 33 now. I had to think about that then. And so by the time it kicks off, they might not recruit someone like me, or maybe they will if it gets really desperate. But like, I've got a kid, I've got a son, right? I've got a daughter, but it's usually the young boys that get whisked away to war. And he's 6-year-old, which means by the time, 12 years down the line, if a war kicks off, like, it's going to be prime time for him. And that terrifies me. The last thing I want is my family and friends to ever be drawn into something so horrendous just because of leaders of countries of egos. Do you know what I mean? I learned a long time ago that being in the military, for the most part, is just fighting for someone else's ego. That's the truth. There are wars, valid wars, where you're fighting for the freedoms of the people around you, and that in itself is important. World War II and I are an obvious example of that. But it's just scary, innit? It's scary. I'd love to know what you think in the comment section down below. Check out Chug, 10% off, link down below. Check out Morale, my other business. Other than that, I'll see you in tomorrow's video. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.